Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? I put a new music file in there. Sounds a little better, doesn't it? Hey, Sean, fellow Angler Qwest owner. How you doing, buddy? Been looking at the family fish models for obvious reasons, right? I took my Angler Qwest across the bay yesterday over to Linwood Beach. And that's where she's going to stay until springtime. John, good evening. How are you? Craig Plowman, nice to have you along with us. Randy, always a pleasure. I'm leaving this music up because I want to check something out. It was supposed to fade it out. It didn't. Now we'll see if it plays it again. Okay. All right, let me see where I'm at here. I got a lot of people joining us tonight, as always. Greg, good evening. How are you, buddy? Nice to have you along with us. Randy, again, a pleasure. Justin, I'm doing good. Justin, how are you? Thanks for hooking me up. Or at least getting me thinking that direction, right? I appreciate it. Mitchell, I don't recognize your name. Yeah, I do. I don't recognize your name, but I recognize the picture. Welcome back. I appreciate you joining us. Cliff, of course. Jim from Tennessee. Billy, nice to have you along with us. Hey, Cap, how are you? Jerry, nice to have you along with us. JT. Brent, good evening, buddy. Lost Glove with us. Lost Glove, haven't had you here for a couple of weeks. I don't remember, at least. Linda says it was nice to see it was sad to see the Angler Qwest go into hibernation. I'm not. If I want to take advantage of the late season fishing, I have buddies who have boats, including Mr. Angler Qwest himself, Brad Dupuis, says I have an open invitation on his boat at any time. Hello, Randy. Thanks for joining us. Patrick. Sean says he'll fish right until ice up. And I suspect if I asked Sean if I could go with Sean, he'd let me go too. So I got friends who can get me out there. Hey, Jerry. I'm glad to have you checking in. Jim from Tennessee headed to Jay's this weekend. What are you going to get at Jay's? Justin says, pretty good. Pretty good. Steve, it has been a while. Glad you're back around. Ed, I did get your voicemail the other day. Got tied up, did not get a chance to respond verbally, but did you get the text that I sent back with that contact info? Dave, my day was great. How about you? Corey, good evening. James. Ted. What day is it? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday? No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. That's why we're having Wednesday Night Live. What else could it be but Wednesday? Germ Fast checking in. Joe, good evening. I appreciate that, Sean. Southern Shiawassee County checking in. Jim's looking for a crossbow. Jim, I'm just curious. What are you looking for? Do you have a particular brand in mind as you walk into Jay's, or are you looking for their suggestions? How are things in Hershey this morning, Jim, or this evening, Jim? Robert? I am too, Jason. I am too. This weekend should be like 35-ish degrees cooler than last weekend, and I'm ready. In fact, you can feel it cooling off now, and tomorrow's supposed to be a rain day. Cooler with rain, and then the cool temps are supposed to stick around for a while. I'm ready. Good evening, Dan. Mike, always a pleasure. Tommy, same here. Always a pleasure for you. With you. Jeff. Another day closer to the cold. Well, I could do without the cold, Dave. I like the cool. Oh, you got a hold of him. He got a hold of him. Good. Jim says you're welcome on my boat, although it's not an Angler Qwest, just a proven Lund. Nothing wrong with Lunds. A lot of fish have been caught out of Lunds over the years. Hello, Brent. Uncle Johnny, how you doing, buddy? Did you get a notification this time or not? Lisa, 2 8 points for our deer camp in Menominee County. Went to the processor right away. So you had a great opening weekend. Dave sold one of his projects, a 68 Vista Cruiser, an Olds Vista Cruiser. Haven't heard that name in a while. Jim says you like the 10 point, but open to options. I like my 10 point. I looked at Raven, and I looked at 10 point. Thank you, Patrick. So you did listen to that. David Blanton's a great guy, isn't he? Amen on the cooler temps, Billy says. Jerry says, Mike, I sent you a couple of emails. I'm not real computer savvy. Just checking to see if you got them. Hope I sent them to the right address. If you sent them to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, you did send them to the right place. Jerry, I don't remember seeing them, but that doesn't mean anything. Time to sit in the trees. Hoodie weather. Just let me respond to this. Beaver Island this week. I've never been to Beaver Island. Looking for a crank with a bad shoulder. I think on a crossbow, the ability to decock and decock safely, that's why I got a 10 point. Because you can decock it, and even if you let go of the cocking arm, it won't swing around and bust your wrist or your knuckles up. That's why I got a 10 point. Day without skeeters will be very welcome. That's why I love my Thermacell out there. Edward, Gene. Tommy's smoking his pipe this evening, ready for cooler weather. I sat out on the patio last night and smoked a cigar, and it was absolutely glorious. What's in the Yeti? Hey, Michelle. Sounds like you guys had a real nice boat ride last night. Mike, I got a bait I painted for you. Painted like a cigar. How cool is that? Nancy, good evening. John says his first hunt of the season will be Sunday morning. He went fishing on Lake St. Clair Sunday and got skunked. I saw that, John. Johnny says live from the cabin in Linwood. Speaking of restaurants, and this came up a couple of weeks ago, and John Crave's Uncle John, Johnny, you made me think of this. Put this on your calendar. December 6th. Wednesday, December 6th. Now, that's a ways off, but it looks like Wednesday, December 6th, we will have a Wednesday night live at the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. Market. Jim says, who needs bait with all the acorns or acorns? It is. They're great bows, Jim. They're not cheap. No. Right now, there's only Crystal Light. The Maker's Mark goes in about 35 minutes. And I will tell you this, Jim, that on these new high-tech, high-power crossbows, you got to keep an eye on the string and the cables. And you're probably going to have to replace them every year. I had to replace mine after just 5 months. And it's not cheap. It's like $140. So figure that into the cost of your $1,200 crossbow, too. Jerry says the old Parker crossbow used to have a CO2 to cock and decock. I didn't know that. I've never heard of that. He said, but he loves his PSE tack crossbow. Hey, listen, crossbows and bows and guns and knives, it's a very personal decision, right? What you like and what works perfectly for you might not work for your buddy. Mark says, Beaver Island, a lot of people fly fish carp on that island. I did not know that. James says, what does deer processing cost these days? I started processing my own years ago. Anybody have an answer for that? Mike. Pastor, good evening, buddy. How are you? Nice to have you along with us. I bet you're ready for these cooler temps as well. Patrick, looking forward to the first hit of the year this weekend on a new piece of land in Hillsdale. Hillsdale, big buck country. Evening, Josh. How are you? Bluegill going into the fryer. Craig says, put me down for 2 tickets. Now, see, there's a lot that I just packed into that statement about the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant, Wednesday Night Live, December 6th. There's a lot of information and a lot of behind the scenes information in that statement. Jeff says he agrees a lot of acorns this year. I like to call them acorns just because it makes me sound like a hillbilly. Corey says he'll hunt in Midland this weekend, then head to Missouri. Hope the cooler weather stays. I will hunt in Midland County in the next few days, and then on the 15th go down to Ohio. And I'm with you, Corey. I hope the cooler weather prevails for there as well. Yeah, Corey, I was out opening evening. I was out with my grandson, Trent. Now, I went out there knowing I wasn't going to see anything. It was 85 degrees. But I went anyway because when your 21-year-old grandson says, hey, Grandpa, I'm going hunting opening night. Are you going? I'm like, yeah, buddy, I'm going. I'm going. Absolutely. Am I going back out hunting with him? Sure, you bet. Help me out, Tommy. 75 to 125. What are we talking about? 75 to 125 what? What? 75 to 125 on the cost of strings and cable? Hey, Brian, good to hear from you. I'm glad the fishing was good. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we go. 100 to 125 for processing. Thank you, Tommy. I lost track of where we were. Captain Jim says, thanks for dropping the anti-hunters from the feed. I've had it with those people. And I'm not talking about the non-hunters. I'm not talking about the people who just don't hunt, but yet they accept the fact that we want to do it and they want to continue to allow us to do it. I have no problem with those people. The people I have no tolerance for are these hardcore whack jobs on the far end of the spectrum that just will not accept the fact that we have the ability and a biological mandate, and if you believe what I believe, a mandate from God to hunt and harvest and be stewards of the resource. These people are just absolutely crazy. I mean, they go to the point where they say, boy, I wish that bear had a gun, or why don't you take that gun and turn it on yourself and blow your own brains out? That kind of crap is just... So anyway, Jim, it's my pleasure to get rid of those people because I have no respect for them. Jim says he didn't realize the strings break down so fast. I've been listening to you talk about them. If you don't shoot them a lot, they don't. Even if you don't shoot them a lot, you're probably going to have to replace it about once a year. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Harry's checking in from Trufen tonight. How are things in Trufen? Yeah, Dave, I'm glad things have worked out too. Patrick says 80 to 140 on the deer processing. Mark's in Standish, hoping for cold weather. It's coming. Cold weather, no. Cooler weather, certainly. Jeff says 130 last year for standard processing without any sausage. Thank you, Corey. Good luck to you in Missouri. Jerry says $100. Excalibur does make a great crossbow. And the thing about the Excalibur crossbows is they're a recurve bow. There's no cables. It's not a compound. It's about as bulletproof as you can get. Gotcha, folks. A processing fee, yeah. So am I, Jim. John, 2 years ago we were down there and it was so hot we couldn't stand it. Last year we were down there and it was so cold we were freezing. Brian says he sharpened his knives. My Rapid River knife right here, there are others like it, but this one is mine. Actually, there are no others like it. This one is mine. This is a one of a kind. And this just happened to be sitting here because I do this all the time. This is a G5. What would you call this sharpener? And I don't really know, but this is the most effective sharpener that I have found if your blade isn't too bad and you just want to touch it up a little bit. And what you do is, let me see if I can show you. You put this in here and you just bring it through, right? And I'm at an awkward angle, so this looks very awkward, but this is what you do. And it'll take the fine burrs off that edge, and it'll put It'll put a pretty good edge on it. That's my third one of those. I keep wearing them out. Bill, going to be cooler weather this weekend. Am I going out hunting? I'm going to try. Stewards of our resource. Linda likes that term. That's a term that I use quite a bit because I do think we are stewards of the resource. And anybody who wants to take away that way of life from us. See, here's the thing. The hardcore anti-hunters disagree with us, and we disagree with them. Two opposite ends of the spectrum. The difference is we don't try to mandate or impose our way of life on them. We don't say, you know what, because we hunt, we demand that you hunt. We don't do that. But they try to impose their will on us because they don't want to hunt. They don't want us to hunt either. And I think that's the big difference. Justin Tomei from MUCC used a term on the show this morning. He called it the willfully ignorant. The hardcore antis are willfully ignorant to the North American model of wildlife management. I like that. Yeah. Thank you, Scott. How are things out your direction, buddy? Hey, Joey. Scott Hand, felt so good to be back on the Angler Qwest last weekend. Fall bite is getting close. Can't wait. If you missed it, my friends, I posted a picture of Scott Hand, my buddy Scott Hand's grandson, Blake, who is the coolest kid in the world. Well, next to my grandkids, of course, holding a 27-inch walleye. And I got to be honest, Scott, that fish looked bigger. Now, I know Blake's not big. He's growing like a weed now, but I know he's not big. But I would have thought that was a 29-inch fish, maybe even 30-inch fish. Anyway, it was a beautiful fish. My Angler Qwest is back over at Linwood Beach right now. Scott, I took it out of commission because I wasn't worried. Because I knew if I wanted to get out for the fall bite, Brad Dupuis had told me I could get out with him. And I figured I could probably hitch a ride with you too. So, and I kind of want to do that when it gets cold and the big fish are in. Good evening, Bruce. How are you? Speaking of big fish, I did an offshore tackle podcast today talking about the fall fishing down there. Oh my gosh. I love my Saginaw Bay, but you cannot beat Lake Erie in the fall. Why are you selling your Excalibur, Jeff? Doug Ward, 19 eyes yesterday on the bay. Doug is also an Angler Qwest guy. That's great to hear, Doug. I talked to Jason Graham yesterday, and he had a 14-fish day, but those are summertime numbers. Glad to hear that, guys. Came across my old Allen Speedster. Going to give it at least a go once this season. What is it? Allen. Allen is an old name in the archery industry. Is that an old compound bow, Harry? I'm not sure what it is. Well, it's a knife sharp. Well, it's designed to sharpen broadheads. But it's also a knife sharpener. That's the thing, John. If you enjoy processing your own venison, it is. It is a carbide sharpener. It's designed for broadheads, but it does a great job on knives. Hey, buddy. Hey, Ken. What are you doing down in Arkansas, Ken? Anyway, good evening. Hello. I don't think it would work as well on serrated blades, Dave. I can't see it doing that. Best stone for knife sharpening, in my opinion, are the natural Arkansas stones. Derek, I can't disagree with that. The problem is most people, myself included, don't have the skill set to keep a consistent angle on the blade to get a good edge. Where'd Mark? I thought Mark. Moving after dark, yeah. Get the Ken Onion Workshop. Similar to what they use. I also have a Lansky system. I like the Lansky system to it. Bruce. Hey, Dave. Thanks for sending the picture of your daughter, Jessica. You'll notice, Dave, that I went through that post with a weed whacker. And I got rid of the idiots and I got rid of the negative comments. It's the same group of people who commented on Justin Tomei's bear picture. If you don't want to hunt or fish or shoot or trap, that's fine. But don't come on my page and belittle or criticize somebody who does. Don't threaten somebody who does. I'm so sick of these little wormy anti-hunters who never see daylight coming after us and saying, I hope you die. I wish you'd die. Well, come at me, buddy. I'm pretty visible. You can find me just about anywhere. Come on, let's do it. I mean, I'm not a young man anymore, but come on. If you really think that's the case, then do it. That's a good point, Doug. If my grandkids are the coolest, I must be the coolest grandpa. That's a very good point. Joe also makes a great point. Everything we have is a gift of God. We are called to be good stewards of these gifts, deer included. That's why you're a pastor, Joe. Bugs are incredible sitting in a tree stand right now. That's why you need your thermocell. Hey, Nate, I heard there were some fish up in the river already. Harry says it's the first compound bow ever made. Do you actually trust it, Harry, to draw it? I would be a little bit concerned about the thing blowing up. Lisa says it's bad enough with all these wolves in the UP. Now someone posted a picture of a wolf walking away with one of their sugar beets. I didn't see that. Thermocell is your friend. Older model Excalibur. Gotcha. Hey, Brad, good evening. And Derek, if you can do it, you have a gift. My dad had that gift. My dad could take a knife or an axe or a hatchet or anything, put it on a whetstone, and within a few minutes, he had an edge you could literally shave with. He tried to teach that skill to me, but I never picked up on it because I don't have the ability to keep a consistent angle. That's why I think for most people, a tool like this that keeps a consistent angle, or a system like the Lansky's that keep a consistent angle, I think they're best. Now, I like what just happened right there. I'm going to get rid of this comment just for a second. I like how my camera switched focus right there and focused on my knife with my head face above it. I'm going to use this as a still frame. That's why I just did that. For nothing more, no more reason than that. Good evening, Jerry. How are you? Yeah, Dave, you know, it made me mad when I saw those comments, and I thought, if that was my daughter, I'd been livid. Ron, good evening. That's ridiculous. I am, Mark. When you shoot that 200-inch whitetail with Bill Piles in a week and a half, I will have you on the show. Tim, good evening. Corey, that's not nice. Swamp Master, isn't that what Mitch Rompola hunted with, the Swamp Master? Robert, you had it restrung. They looked at it. Okay. Okay, now let me tell you, a couple of things. I'm talking about the weather, obviously. A big change coming up starting tomorrow. I think the red-winged blackbirds are getting ready to leave. As I sit here in my office now with the window open, I can hear the pond behind me. And the last couple of days, they've been squawking a lot like they do in the springtime when they come back. So I feel like they're getting ready to flock up and head out of here. I told you I did move the Angler Qwest across to Linwood Beach. I did make it out with my grandson, Trent. Thermocell is your friend. You like that? Jim says he likes that mammoth tusk. This truly is. This is a woolly mammoth ivory. Chris Durson of Rapid River has a supplier that he can get it from. Yeah. You know why they come in waves, Joe? Well, you're right. They do come in waves. The picture that I posted, well, let me back up. The one guy that Randy Sprague was his name, and I called him out by name because I got sick of his crap, and he posted on Jessica Sapansky's picture, that real nice young lady who shot that opening day buck. And he said some snide comment about too bad it didn't get to breed before you shot it. And he's known for these stupid comments. So I said, you're done. Bye. See ya. And she got some negative comments, but then the bear picture from Justin Tomei really put me over the top. No, not here. They haven't. But I'll tell you what, Robert, this is interesting. Hey, Joe. Good evening, buddy. A Chef Choice electric sharpener. Okay. Good old carbon butcher knives. Okay, Robert Cahoon says the Red Wings have been gone for a while at our place in Everett. I think, actually, now that you mention it, Robert, I did not hear any today. Now, today was quite a bit windier, and it would have carried the sound away from me where I'm sitting here. But I think you're right. I think what I heard the last 2 days with these birds flocking up and squawking, I bet you they're gone now because I didn't hear one today. Thanks for pointing that out. That's a good point. Larry says, we get our weather a day before you. It's 60 to here, lower Saturday morning, 38. Got a black bear, Huntland, Big Sow, 400 pounds. She's not scared of me. We don't hurt. There's no reason to be scared of black bears, unless somehow you get yourself between a sow and a cub, and you're going to have to work hard to make that happen. Ed Bolanowski. Ed, I'm going to tell you something here right now, and you're going to catch on right away to what this means. Put on your calendar for Wednesday, December 6th, we're going to do a Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant. And you will know immediately what that means. Hey, good evening, Mike. How are you? Mike Hampton of Mike's Tire Sales in Caw Calling. If you're looking for tires, Mike does a great job, decent prices, and just a nice guy. Linda says, when you see the Juncos, then you know we've transitioned to a new season. Jerry says, yes, Mitch Rampola did use that model bow. It was the cool factor to buy one. Cheap at the time, now it's just a keepsake. I get that, Jerry, because I still have my first Darton SL50 compound. It's hanging in the storage room on the other side of that wall over there. I get that cool factor. Robert, good evening. That wasn't coyote video, Larry. That was a wolf. That was a wolf on a UP bear bait. That's why you didn't see the shot. Thank you, Ed. A bear strolling by. How cool is that? Dave says, count me in. The Lumberjack is a great place. Not until November, technically, Craig. Not until November. Let me respond. Boom. Let me tell you who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week, if you don't mind. My first guest this week is Justin Tomei. Now, Justin happens to be the policy expert, think of lobbyist, for MUCC. He's also an avid hunter. He went to the UP, and he hunted with some houndsmen. And like the first hour of the hunt, or the first 3 hours of the hunt, he took a big bear, over 300 pounds, dressed, that had a big, beautiful white blaze on its chest. So we talk about that. Then I also wanted to get Justin's reaction to being attacked by the anti-hunters like he was. And he's the one who used the term willfully ignorant when we're talking about the anti-hunters. Then Carl Yiter of the Yiter Insurance Group. Where is the Lumberjack? Get my mouse back over. Lumberjack is in West Branch. Captain Doug, it's in West Branch. I will let you guys know when they open them for reservations. Muskie fishing is going to get nothing but better from now on, Brian. Justin says West Branch. Where else? So anyway, folks, I will let you know when they start taking reservations. It'll be a while. It'll be a while. In hour number 2, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats talks about their company, their products, and the fact that you can take in deboned meat to them at their plant in Bay City, and they will process your wild game for you. Then Chad Stewart of the DNR. Chad also answers the question, this week's Ask Avery question. Let me pull it up right now. Mike Llewellyn, and I don't know if he's related to you, Joe, sent me a Facebook message. And he said, Mike, have you heard anything about the DNR having a permit you can buy for being able to bait deer on private property? I heard this from a couple of different sources. You hear the geese? Big flying rats. Chad Stewart answers that question. And the answer to it is no. There is no such thing. Jeff says, just got back in from work. Good evening. We're going back to the Lumberjack? We are, Jeff. We're going back there Wednesday, December 6th for a Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack restaurant. Way too early to have tickets on sale now. I'm just saying, put it on your calendar. And they are landing on the pond. Yes, they are. Flying rat. Well, they are. Seagulls are flying rats. Geese are big flying rats. I still love the sound of them, though. Just don't like them in my yard. So, no, there is no two things. There is no permit you can buy that will allow you to feed deer on private property in southern Michigan. Doesn't exist. There are no plans to do such a permit. And thirdly, do not look for baiting ever to come back in the near future in the Lower Peninsula. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Joe says, start the pile. It's not going to happen. You're not legally going to be able, or a fat bottom Betty. Jim says he's looking forward to the big dinner and auction sponsored by your church, too. Yeah, that'll be, I think it's the first Saturday in March, so I think it's Saturday, March 5th this year. That'll be a great event. Good evening, Dave. How are you? Thanks for joining us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. In our third hour this week, you thought I forgot, didn't you? The closing hour of the show, the Bear Whisperer. No, not the Bear Whisperer. The Deer Whisperer, the Whitetail Whisperer, John Eberhardt joins me in hour 3 this week to talk about what he talks about, which is shooting big bucks on public land or private land. And he talks about a very interesting concept that he started using 2 years ago. He said, and I've always wondered this, right? If you've got standing corn, you know the deer are living in that standing corn. They're staying there. There's no reason for them to leave. Now, short of running a combine through there and pushing them out, or stalking, I've never stalked a cornfield. I've always wanted to. How are you going to get deer out of a cornfield? What John has started doing a couple of years ago, and he's had success with it, set a tree stand, or in his case, a tree saddle, in the opening from the end of the cornfield to the woods. You know, that 4 or 5 yards right there. And he rattles. Now, he doesn't rattle like you hear the TV hunters rattling out in Kansas or Missouri or Iowa. He just tinkles them a little bit, like $2 sparring, and then he stops. 5 minutes later, he does it again, and then he stops, and he doesn't do it anymore. He said he has consistently called bucks out of standing corn to the edge of the corn the last 2 years over and over. Pretty cool, huh? Ed says, I got to find my mouse. Ed says they used to stalk corn with a bow. I think it would be fun. I've just never done it. But I like the concept of rattling. How cool is that? Oh, and I told you that on the Offshore Tackle podcast this month, I'm talking about big fall Lake Erie walleye. I'm talking with Jason Fisher. Jason is the guy who is in charge of the Lake Erie Fall Brawl and the Lake Erie Walleye Trail. He's also the guy, remember the video, was it just last year, maybe 2 years ago now, when they found the walleye in the Lake Erie tournament that were stuffed with weights and fillets? Jason is the weighmaster, the tournament director who you see in the video, who picked the fish up and said, there's weights. We found weights in here. That's Jason. One more flying rat just went over. Store in Holly already gone through 3 pallets of bait a week. See, here's the thing, Patrick. It's not illegal to sell bait. Just like, remember when before pot was legal? You couldn't have pot, but you couldn't sell pot, but you could sell paraphernalia. With bait, you can't sell bait for the Lower Peninsula. You can't use bait for the Lower Peninsula, but you can sell it. If for no other reason, then how do you know that the people buying that bait weren't taking it to the UP? Now, I know you know that's not the case, but that's what they say. You can't prove that. Thanks, John. That's Greg Abbas. He's a very interesting guy. Ever heard the guy rattling that sounded like 2? I don't know what you mean. Interesting to see all John's mounts at Jay's and Claire. Justin says he loves stalking whitetail and corn with an old bear recurve. That's the way to do it. I'm telling you what, Justin, you just got my blood flowing there. If you want to go old school and cool and intense and basic and intimate and beautiful, take an old recurve, like a bear recurve, and stalk a cornfield. I've never done it. I've always dreamed of it. I probably never will do it at this point, but how cool. Other than rattling, it sounds like squirrel hunting tactics. Okay? It was an interesting. Oh yeah, those fishermen got prosecuted all right. They got nailed big time. Brad says, although nothing could be worse than dragging a deer through corn. That's why you got to do what I do. I go to church with a bunch of farmers. Just bring the combine through and open up a path. Jeff, ever heard the guy rattling who sounded like he was beating 2 tree trunks together? He probably scared the deer to. Okay. And that's what I was talking about. When you see them slamming the antlers together in the TV hunting shows, they slam them together. And then they use a real deep grunt. Those are tactics that might work out west. They're probably not going to work here in Michigan. John, with a different governor or legislator, a bill could come up to overturn the NRC for baiting. I suppose that's an option, but I tell you what, it's not going to come from the DNR. I can promise you that. Because they say thank you, when they buy the bait. That's how you know. Dave says, too hot for hunting. Wife and I went October 1st to a small lake by West Branch, got a dozen nice perch. Jerry says, that's what I absolutely love about you and your shows, Mike. You'll talk and cover anything and everything that comes up. Stalking cornfields with my Black Widow recurve was fun. John said, I just started listening to your show from last week today. I'm slightly behind. It's okay, John. If you miss a show, it's okay. You don't have to hear every show or every podcast. My land sit next to 450. That's a cornfield. People across hunting heaven. I bet it is. Joe says you have to plant those oak trees that drop apples. Those new oak trees that drop. And I asked him, Joe. I asked Chad Stewart from the DNR. Now, I like Chad. I think he's a good guy. I think he's in a very tough spot. And I said, Chad, you and I have talked about this before, but I'm going to ask you again on the record here on this show. What is the difference between putting out bait, because you said that congregates deer and can spread CWD. So what's the difference between that, putting out bait, and hunting under an apple tree or over a food plot? That's a good one. Pine apple trees. Good one, Lost Club. He said the difference is when you put out bait day after day and consistently, you habituate the deer to come into that. He said when you have a natural food crop like acorns, or acorns as I suddenly want to call them tonight, just because I want to sound like I'm from Kentucky. When the acorns fall from the trees, I shouldn't do that. It's temporary. Mother Nature provides that food, but then it's temporary and it's gone. Now, I didn't have time to get into it, but that's really not the case with a food plot, though, is it? Because a food plot isn't temporary. A food plot's pretty much there. Or corn maple trees. Difference in politics is my opinion, Mike says. I think we should be able to bait deer. I really do. I think and I'm no biologist, and I told Chad this. I said, I'm not an expert and I'm not a biologist, but I would like to see baiting back. I think the minimal risk caused by CWD transmission from bait is offset by the ability for hunters to attract deer, view the deer, selectively harvest the deer, and increase their harvest and have a chance of making a better chance of making a quick, clean, humane killing shot over bait. Plus, bait, because it brings deer in, has a better chance of attracting young hunters. Acorns. Hey, Jeff. Joe has a good point. Baiting is temporary. It stops at the end of the deer season or whenever your tag is filled. That's a good point, Joe. You are correct, sir, Timothy says. Acorns? Acrines? How long does 2.5 gallons of bait last? I guess it depends on where you are, eh, Jim? And that's just it. If the DNR truly wants us to harvest more does, then give us the tools to do it. And I think bait is a very effective tool in harvesting deer. The lease property that we have in the southwest part of Midland County is marginal at best. Marginal. We put in some food plots and it's just so-so. If we could put bait out there, I'm telling you right now, it would be a different ball game. Dave says he likes the spin feeders. That's not nose to nose. Jeff says baiting would also do more to retain young hunters than a youth hunt, in my opinion. Can't argue with it, Jeff. Can't argue with it. Lost track of time. Did I miss some good stuff tonight? James, you probably missed the best Wednesday Night Live ever produced, ever live streamed, ever. Brad says they give permits to the farmers to shoot deer. Mark says, as usual, the DNR talking points about bait have lots of holes in them. They do. They do. I can't argue with that, Mark. That's a conversation we will save for an in-person conversation in a week and a half in Ohio. Oh, my ice is... Oh, no, my... There. Crystal lights. It's right. It's been epic. But this is getting lonely. Let me see. Now, you're going to notice... I added a different audio file. Last week was starting to sound pretty bad. B&F camp. Refill time. Good evening, David. How are you? My name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Am I a metalhead? Not really. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If you have a question, a comment, a criticism, what do you want to hear on the show? What are you sick of hearing on the show? I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email. Send me your pictures, too. By the way, speaking of that renewed partnership from earlier, we're working on some things to feature and focus on kids in the outdoors. So if you've got kids hunting and fishing pictures, send them off to me. All right, my friends, thanks for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Don't forget, Wednesday, December 6th. It's a long ways off. Put that on your calendar for a live stream at the Lumberjack Restaurant. Have a good night.